Thanks. Hi, everyone.
Hi. Good to see everybody.
Let me do a quick mute. There we go. Hey, everybody. I've muted you, but we'll unmute in a second. I just started to hear noise as soon as we let everyone in. Hi, happy Sunday. There we go. Welcome, welcome. Let's give it a couple seconds while everybody joins. There we go. Okay. There we go. I think that's
So nice to see so many familiar faces and so many new faces. We're very excited on this Sunday morning to get started and talk about our bodies. Yay.
Okay, I think this is everyone for now. We're waiting on a few others, but if we see new faces, know that they're welcome here too. I'm Chelsea. I'm the CEO of Campowerment. We provide experiences to deepen your connection to yourself and a community of purpose-driven people like you. We have programming online right now and, in quarantine and beyond to hit your mind, body, soul, and sense of belonging. So this is sort of about all of those things today, and we're really, really excited to have you. I'm trying to get someone named Nancy out of the waiting room right now. A sec. A couple of things before we start, a couple of housekeeping things. This program is meant to be interactive, so anything you want to share, any way that you want to be seen or heard, we want to make sure that we see or hear you. There will be quite a few of us on this call, so we're going to rely pretty heavily on the chat feature. So if you've never used that, I'm going to show you a couple of features that will be helpful during the session. So below your face if you're on the computer, and I think to the left of your face if you're on a tablet, there's a chat feature. It looks like a chat bubble. That will light up as people use the chat feature throughout the session. You should use that too. So Dr. Suze will ask you some questions. You should weigh in there, and we'll be monitoring the chat throughout the duration of the session so that we can respond to you and make sure that all questions are answered and that your stories are heard. If you want to raise your hand, a couple of ways you can do that. You can physically raise your hand, but we're more than one window's worth of people. So if you feel like you're not being seen, there's a raise hand feature on Zoom. If you click the participants button that looks like two people in a crowd, you click that again on the computer, it's below your face. You can click that and a bar will pop up to the right of your Zoom window. And there's a little feature all the way down that says raise hand. So we'll use that, or you can rely on chat and just keep making sure that we find you if you're for any reason not being found. Otherwise, if you want to unmute yourself at any time, the top right of your Brady Bunch window will help you do that. There's a button that says mute. Let's just be mindful that there are a lot of people on the call, so we don't want to all unmute at the same time. So the chat feature will help us moderate that. And last but not least, if you want to see the others who are on the call, at the top right of your Zoom window, there's gallery view. If you're not already on there, you'll know if you're not already on there if you only see me right now. And if you want to see everyone, you'll see everyone in Brady Bunch tiles if you choose gallery view. If you need anything or you have questions on any of the things I just said, I don't want to take up any more time, but you can chat directly to me and I'll help you out. So with that, I'm going to introduce my partner, my boss mom, Tammy, who will kick it to Dr. Suzanne. Tam.
Hi, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We're really excited today to have a special guest. Our expert today is Dr. Suzanne Gilbert-Glenn. She's been an OBGYN in Beverly Hills. She runs the Women's Care of Beverly Hills for dozens of years and has delivered hundreds, if not thousands of babies. They call her the Zen Gyno because after many, many years of a personal yoga and meditation practice, she also completed her clinical Ayurvedic specialist degree. And she is a multi-talented integrative doctor who is pretty hot shit, actually, and has become a real specialist in menopause, peri, middle, post, all of it. And today she's coming to us with our Menopause Bootcamp to help answer our questions and understand our bodies in a way that perhaps we haven't looked at in the past. So we're very, very excited to have her. Welcome to my dear, dear friend, who's also a breast cancer survivor and an incredible advocate for women. I met Dr. Suzanne when I was a TV producer, and she was a guest that I booked on a lot of my shows because of the real way she deals with people. She's authentic, she's awesome, she's brilliant, and we're so happy to have her. Welcome, Dr. Suze.
Hi. Wow. What a beautiful intro. Thanks, Tam. Thanks, Chelsea. Hi, everybody. This is a little weird for me. I'm used to like getting the energy from people, but I see many of your beautiful faces, and thank you for taking time on a Sunday to check in about yourself. Thank you for taking the time for yourself, which is really what this is all about. Couple of things. I really want us to be able to talk to each other to the extent that we can. So what I want to do is a couple of things. What I'm doing for you guys today is sort of a mini version of what I normally would do live, and I will probably do virtually for the foreseeable future. And it's a snippet. It's about an hour-ish of usually what's about a 4-hour event. And one of my favorite things about this is both empowering you guys, and we'll talk about what that means to me specifically in this area, but also getting to know you all and you getting to know each other. It's very similar to the experiences I've had with Campowerment and what Campowerment is about, and that is community building. And I think it's pretty obvious now more than ever, where we are practicing social distancing and isolation for a lot of us, how important community is. And when we get further into this conversation, I'm going to show you, there's science to, maybe you'll just believe me, but there is a lot of science to support the fact that social connection is really, really important to our health. I think as women, intuitively, we know this, and we always gather in groups. It's just like a thing that we do. And so I'm super extra excited to be able to do this with you guys today. So because we don't have time and we can't really go around the room and introduce ourselves, if you could find that chat box and just introduce yourself. Tell me your name. Tell me where you are in this process, why you showed up here today, okay? So are you early and kind of wanting to prep yourself for what's coming? Are you smack dab in the middle of it? Are you done with menopause and sort of wondering, okay, how do I make this part of my life even more healthy, fun, enjoyable? How do I optimize it? One of the things that I've recently discovered about myself is that I'm turning into my grandmother. And I'm going to explain to you why. Not just because I literally have the same exact gray hair growth as her, which I feel very lucky to have, and not also because I decided to make fish stock last night. Don't even ask about my quarantine cooking behaviors. Raise your hand. Who is doing a lot of weird cooking? Who is saving everything? Right. I couldn't somehow find a way to throw out the fish bones from the fish that I don't know. So I made fish stock, and then it smelled like gefilte fish in my house. So that happened. Anyways, the other thing that my grandmother used to talk about was the golden years, which she sarcastically referred to as the golden years. And one of the things that I've discovered, both from my own experience, I'm 54 going on 55, and from decades of work in women's health and with my patients, is that as we get older, everything changes, right? We know that life has changed. Life has changed. Is anybody else noticing that life has changed? I mean, right. Has anybody not been challenged in their notions, especially in the last 6 or 7 weeks, of everything? This is the way my life is. This is how I do it. Okay, so how's that working out for you right now? Anybody challenged? It's really hard, but it's actually really real, and it sort of speaks even more intimately and profoundly to the work that I've been doing in menopause, raising awareness and helping us feel okay about it. Because back to Grandma Ann, the golden years, we're lucky to be here. We're privileged. I feel privileged to be 54 and a half, okay? I feel privileged to be in this life. The alternative is really not, it's not to be here, to put a very fine point on it. So there's that, right? And we have a problem with how we view aging in this culture, correct? Anybody have that experience? Anybody think that this culture really embraces aging and they're super proud of that? Anybody felt it? I mean, I think there are places like, thank you, Tammy. I think there are places in the culture where that is changing. And I will tell you that my experience has been really interesting of late, because as I do more work in menopause, what I'm finding is that actually big corporations, whatever you think about that, are very, very interested in us right now, ladies. Very interested in us. All of a sudden, it's not that cool to ignore, half the population. So for no other reason, because they want our money, right? So we have that power, and what we can do is turn that inward, right? We can look at, like, who are we? We've been on the planet for this amount of time. We have a lot to offer. We have a lot of wisdom. We have a lot of experience. And when we work together, when we band together, we really get some creative, witchy juices going. It's so great. It doesn't have to be bad. You're sidelined. You're not viable anymore. Any of that stuff. Okay. It really doesn't have to be. But when we are isolated and we're shamed and we don't talk about it, that's never a good thing. Nothing really great grows in the what I call the shade of shame. So I'm here to help kind of till the soil, give you some nutrients to help grow whatever your plant is going to be. And I'm going to give you some basic facts. I want to get your questions. I want to get the info out there. I want to have the conversation as much as we can in this format. But I also really want to remind you that while I do everything from a combo of a head-heart thing, so I'm very intuitive and heart-focused, and my work in integrative medicine and holistic traditional medicine has supported that. But I'm a scientist by nature, and I like to have scientific evidence. Here's what I will tell you. No two of us are going to do this exactly the same. And there isn't a cookie cutter, one size fits all solution to any of our complaints, problems, quality of life issues. So there's some basic info, and then there's the way we tailor it to ourselves. Okay. Does that make sense? Anybody have anything that is a burning desire that they want me to know about right now? And Chelsea will turf it to me.
I will. Can I say there are a lot of people, I'm reading the chat. Many
Yeah.
who just are without periods, but don't really know what's coming next. They know their period stopped, and they're having some weird symptoms. But
well, we're about to get to that. So now we're going to get to the definitions. So here's the deal with menopause. How many of you guys have been told or been told by a practitioner or a friend or the internet, you should get your hormones checked, or have gone to a doctor and asked, or whoever your practitioner is, for hormones to be tested? And if you got Chelsea or whoever, if you could let me know, because I really want to.
Yeah, Karen, Susan, Tina, Lori, Lots, okay. Lisa,
okay,
Therese, yeah.
So I'm going to tell you something you may not want to hear about that. Menopause is a retrospective diagnosis. So what does that mean? Once you have had 12 consecutive months without a period, we know you have menopause. I'm going to say that again. 12 consecutive months without a period. Then we can say, okay, you're in menopause now. I mean, menopause and postmenopause are sort of interchangeably used. So that might surprise a lot of you. And I think this area is full of surprises for both practitioners and for those of us going through it. It's not like your thyroid, needs to be in a narrow range in order to function appropriately or to be alive. And even that range is controversial, but we're just going to use that. Or your blood sugar needs to be here, below here, or if it's above here, it's diabetes. That's not how it works with menopause. So going in and checking your hormones is interesting, and it's not necessarily going to tell you anything. I'm not saying that I don't say you should get your hormones checked ever, but it's not going to make the diagnosis. That's a really big thing to let go of, because we get attached to a certain process in medicine, and we, meaning even my colleagues, and for you guys to come in and be told, like, I don't know where you're at. That's actually a true statement. I say that all the time to people. Okay, so that's definition number one, and it's probably the most important definition I'm going to give you today if you didn't know it. So if you're not having periods, they're irregular, you're skipping, super common. Typically what we see is you get into sometimes your mid 40s, even late 30s, more commonly around 45 or so. And your cycle changes. Okay, so when I talk about menstrual cycle, I'm not talking about the period of time when you're having your period, when you're bleeding. When we in medicine talk about the menstrual cycle, we're talking about the whole thing. Okay, bleeding, stopping bleeding, ovulation or not, PMS period. That's the cycle. So the interval between periods of bleeding typically will get shorter together, a lot of times heavier. This is a lot of guys come in with this. It's really can be very disruptive. Then you start skipping, and you could go for 8 or 9 months, right? And we'll talk about some of the things that happen. You can tell me what happens, right? You know, that's when a lot of the other symptoms start setting in. And then eventually you just never get a period again. It's not an on-off switch. It's not like the minute you skip a period, you're done. No, you're not. You're in perimenopause. So that's the part that I think is the hardest for most people, perimenopause. And the average time is about 4 years in that weird irregularity, but it can last from 2 to 10 years. So instead of like now everybody just wanting to curl up in a ball and die because, oh my God, is this shit gonna last me 10 years and what the hell am I gonna do? Just know that that's okay. It's normal for some people for it to extend for a long period of time. And I'm definitely going to talk to you about what are the things you can do about it to feel better in your body. Because one of the experiences that I'm personally having right now is like, who is this? Like, what in the hell is going on? Anybody want to nod? Please tell me I'm not the only person. I know I'm not the only person who feels that way, right? It's like your body was, and for me personally, like it took me a long time to make friends with my body and be cool with it, you know? And I think that's a pretty common experience for women. And so then to be thrown into, oh, no, that's not it anymore either, it can be disconcerting. Okay, so I could get really super statty with you, but I'm not going to go crazy. If anybody has a very, very specific question, throw it at Chelsea. And
I saw a couple of questions.
Yes,
I saw a couple of questions about
yes.
if you had a hysterectomy or a partial hysterectomy, what
Yes.
does that mean for where you fall?
That's a great question. So, I mean, partial hysterectomy, you guys sometimes use terminology that we don't use. I'm assuming what you mean, okay, if you've had a hysterectomy that includes removing your ovaries, that's it. You're in surgical menopause. And that is a very different experience than the more kind of rolling experience that I just talked about. First of all, you don't have a uterus, so you're not bleeding and you can't track it that way. And I'm not going to spend too much time on this because it's such a specific question, but I want to acknowledge that that's a very different situation. Losing your ovaries suddenly because of chemotherapy, cancer, or a surgery that removes both your ovaries and being like kind of however you were and then dropping off a cliff, because that's what it feels like, is a very different experience psychologically, physically, and otherwise, and medically. Partial hysterectomy, I'm guessing what the questioner means by that is that they had their uterus removed, but they have their ovaries. And as long as you have ovaries, you still have the opportunity to be in the menstrual cycle from the hormonal perspective. So going back to what I was just talking about, this is one of the things that I was referring to. Your bleeding itself is the signal that's most obvious to you and to me, but it's not the only signal of what's happening in your body hormonally. The ovaries are making the vast majority of the hormones that are controlling this part of our bodies. So if your ovaries are there, you still could be having ovarian hormone function. Estrogen, I think, is what you guys probably think about most. There's other things involved. It is true that there's some data suggesting that when somebody goes through a hysterectomy that spares their ovaries, so they still have their ovaries, they may go through menopause a little bit earlier than average. But the average age in this country is, does anybody have any idea what the average age of menopause is, or the median age? That's different scientifically. Median. Yeah, it's
Karen. I see you like holding
yeah,
up.
it's yeah, you guys are right. I mean, you guys are smart, right? And you're probably all sort of in somewhere near it. It's 51.4. 51.4. And that doesn't mean that everybody is there. It means that about half of people will reach menopause at that age. But that means there's a fair number of people who reach it later. And the average span is 45 to 58. I have patients in my practice who are still menstruating in their late 50s. I do. And, for better or worse, that's what it is. So let's say, and you're never going to know, right? I just told you it's a retrospective diagnosis. You're never going to know when you would have gone through menopause if you had a hysterectomy and now your ovaries are out. So, but we do know that it seems like that age might be pushed a little bit younger. So that's the answer to that question. Was there anything more kind of in that realm?
There were a couple of specific questions on that. I think I'm just going to save them.
Okay, cool.
For the end,
Great.
and then if you hit
Great.
them. So,
Great.
So Devin, I see you. I'm just going to save the questions in case Dr.
Cool.
It's going to ask again.
All right. So having said that, if 51.4 is the median age of menopause, does anybody know what the average lifespan of the American woman is? And I can't see all of you, but I'm just going to tell you, it's 80, it's like 80-ish, 80.5, right? So that means, and a lot of us live longer than that. That means that we're spending a third to a half of our lives in menopause. Again, this is not a bad thing, you guys. This is not a bad thing. This is a gift. And this is why, if you leave with nothing else from this conversation, I want you to leave feeling like how important you are. You are so important. Women in our age group and beyond are really important. And I think we're even more important, and we're called to action even more now, because shit is hitting the fan and people need a fairy godmother, and they're not coming. I was watching a lot of superhero movies the other week, and I was like, where's Batman? He's not coming. We're Batman. We're Batman. Okay. We really are. Batwoman, whatever, bat them. Okay. Seriously. Like we have to stop disparaging ourselves. We just have to. The older I get, the less fucks I have to give. I'm okay to swear, right? Because I already am doing it. So you can mute me if you don't like it. You can bleep it later. But has anybody seen that candle that says, these are the fucks I have left to give, and they're on fire or something like that? It's pretty awesome. I'll try to find a link and send it to you guys. We should do a promotion with them. That's where I'm at. Seriously, like, I'm not going to lie. I do want to be liked. I'm not going to lie. But I care a shit ton less. And it's physiologic. Why do you think they don't want? Listen, there's a reason. There are a couple of reasons, in my opinion, that the image of the witch or the crone and the hag and all these really negative images are out there because women in our age group aren't trying to make your baby, can't make your baby, don't give a shit about making your baby, and also know a lot of stuff. So we're a little bit scary because we have actually quite a bit of power. If we would take that back and start by owning it, liking ourselves, loving ourselves, and then bringing that love out to the world, I think that we could I know we could do a lot of good. So that can be seen as threatening and scary by the patriarchy, or it can be a gift that we are giving. I choose to look at it. Some days I'm like, fuck you, patriarchy. I am. But today I'm feeling the love because I'm with my sisters. And enough of that. But that's where you guys, this is where this all comes from. This is why I'm out there like, come on, we got this. Okay, so let's fix your hot flashes and vaginas, shall we? Is anybody on board? Tammy is really shaking her head hard. I'm concerned about her neck. Okay. All right. So if anybody really wants more stats and demographics, please contact me. But here's what I'm going to tell you. Pretty much almost everybody is going to feel all of these, some of these, most of these. The combination that we feel is really determined by a lot of things. Genetics for sure, other medical issues that we may have, other medications that we're on, if we are smokers, our state of being, the stress level. These are things that you guys know, and I'm here to tell you, yes, science also agrees with you. Science backs that up. So we're going to feel any combination, but the top three that I hear and that are documented scientifically are hot flashes, vaginal complaints, and it's not just vaginal dryness or sexual complaints, it's also urinary complaints. How many here have thought that they're having way more bladder infections than they used to? Is that a thing you guys have noticed? So yeah. So here's the thing. Some of it is a bladder infection and some of it's just that the tissue in the urethra, which is the opening from, the duct that goes from the bladder and brings the urine out to the world through the vagina, right? So that tissue is also affected in menopause, similar to the vaginal tissue. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. Sleep. How many of you guys are sleeping like a baby and just feel really rested when you wake up? Yeah, all of you. That's what I thought. Kind of like me. Yeah, it sucks. Okay. And what I hear most is falling asleep, plus minus, staying asleep. So how many times, show of hands, how many times, or give me your fingers, how many times did you get up to pee last night or feel like you wanted to get up to pee? Maybe you didn't actually do it.
You got 2, 3, 4.
Wow. Oh my God. Is that a 5? Oh, girl.
We have a winner.
That's not that's not the contest she wanted to win. Yeah, it's brutal. And it's a combination of things. There's a hormonal reason. It's not just female hormones, right? But there's a hormone called vasopressin, which actually, amongst other things, helps us to suppress the need to urinate in the night. And as we get older, this is men too, it goes down. And there's no treatment for that. But there are other ways around. There are other workarounds, right? The other reason that I hear people waking up is hot flashes. So let's talk a little bit about hot flashes. I want to kind of run through the list of stuff. Mood stuff. Women are like 2.5 times more likely to be diagnosed with a mood disorder, primarily anxiety or depression, in their perimenopausal and menopausal years. Now, I think that some of that is organic and hormonal, and I think some of it's cultural. I think some of the things that I was talking about, feeling sidelined, feeling pushed aside, feeling less than, having professional issues, work issues, ageism, marriages or long-term relationships really shifting and changing. If you have kids and you raise kids and now they're gone, who are you? There's a lot of other reasons why women have mood disorders, but I do think that there's an organic component as our hormone levels start fluctuating and shifting. And, so that's a real thing, and that's something that needs to be addressed. Cognition, brain fog. Yeah, do I need to say more? Yeah, somebody was raising their hand. Anybody have something they want to say or ask a question? I see Stacy was asking something. And I'm sorry, group 2, because I don't see you guys the same. Okay.
I do, I'm checking.
Okay. So cognition, memory, word finding, seriously all the time, to the point that my kids, my 19-year-old is home from college, got pulled out, yanked out because of this mishigas, and my 22-year-old is living at home right now, and they get scared. They get scared. They're like, Mom. I'm like, I just can't. I can't. And I'm pretty smart, but I just can't. Sometimes I think my brain is overwhelmed. Sometimes I haven't slept. And sometimes it's just like the connection is just not happening. And that's, again, a real thing. Weight gain. Who's at their ideal weight right now? Who's working their way toward the COVID-19? I am. I'm just going to make a joke about it today. Not super happy. And that weight gain, not like where I'd like it, like in my ass. I don't have a big ass. I would have liked a bigger ass. It's in my tummy. Yeah, cute, right? It's not cute. And not only is that not cute, but that does increase our risk for other medical issues as we get older. So we know that metabolic syndrome disorders, and those are things like heart disease, diabetes, stroke is related to those things, definitely increase as our abdominal fat increases. And I'm not talking like a little bit of fat. I'm talking, obesity and stuff like that. All right. And sexuality, libido, just general energy. So these are the things that have I left anything out? Anybody having, joint pain. That's about 50% of women. Yeah. 50%. This is not talked about very much. Yeah. Joint pain, big one, like random joint pain, right? Yes. Big thumbs up. Somebody give me a thumbs up. Here's the other thing that I notice a lot of inflammatory. Yes, I see that. Hair loss. So hair loss, skin changes. I've even seen asthma develop. So here's where my integrative hat comes on. when you're especially in the perimenopause, and we talked about what that means in terms of your bleeding and your symptoms, what I find is that people's symptoms flare and recede in a very unpredictable way. What I know from my own body and from 20 years in women's health is that, again, going back to this attachment thing, right? When we have our menstrual cycle, whether we like it or not, whether we bleed more than we want, or our PMS is more, or our boobs hurt, or whatever, at least we get used to it and we can sort of predict where we're at. Oh, I want to divorce you because I'm going to have my period in the next 3 days, right? It's when you start losing that predictability, it's really, really, not only is it disconcerting, but your life is unpredictable. Here's the other thing I can tell you. It's not just the downstream effects of your actual experience of life and your body. There's inflammation that's occurring. And there are these surges and releases. And I think, and I don't have a lot of science to back this up, this is more of my integrative Ayurvedic perspective. As you are having these flares, we see a lot more inflammatory conditions, like the skin changes, like the joint pain, hair loss is another one that we see. And these are all, I think for me, when I can name that for you, at least it's less of an isolating situation. It's like, I hear this over and over and over. You're not the person going through this. And then we're going to come to like, what are the best ways for us to address that? Yeah, lots of skin changes. And there's also, I think everybody talks about, because of the obsession with youth and beauty, collagen loss. Yes, estrogen has a direct effect on collagen loss and, skin sagging and lines coming and all that kind of stuff. And some of that is fixable with hormones. Some of it is not fixable with hormones. Some of us don't want to fix that. Some of us do. There are all sorts of treatments out there. That's another talk. But that is a real thing. Okay, so those are kind of the issues that I find people suffering from, and that we know are the big issues that cause people to question, how are they going to go on and what are they going to do about it? I did briefly touch on our long-term impacts of menopause. So unmanaged, we have an increased risk of heart disease. Who knows what the number one killer of women in this country, in the United States, is? Is it breast cancer? It's heart disease. 1 in 3. 1 in 3. That's a lot. I am a breast cancer survivor, and I'm a young breast cancer survivor. So I'm not here to disparage breast cancer or say that it's not scary, but it's not even close to the number one killer of women. Heart disease is. And these are things you can do. These are conditions you can do things about. Okay. You can mitigate, you can diminish your risk. Osteoporosis. The mortality rate in 2 years following like a hip fracture, like a big, is very high, very high. So staying fit, staying balanced, having your posture work, exercising, not to get into a size 2 jeans, but to stay balanced so that you don't fall, so you don't have the fracture. Very, very important. It's about optimizing as we move ahead. I think we have to shift a little bit of our perspective about why we have lifestyle management changes. We do lifestyle to feel good in the body that we have right now, today, and to help optimize our aging. Because the goal here for me is not to look like I did when I was 25. I mean, I didn't realize how cute I was, and I really wish I did know that at that time. I was so freaking insecure, but I also was a complete idiot. I do not want to be 25 again. I really don't. Like, that's not where it's at for me. Where it's at for me is to be the best 54-year-old I can, and to be the best 64-year-old and 94, if I, God willing, I'm healthy then. Okay. And then we talked a little bit about mood disorders and how much more frequently mood disorders are diagnosed in women as we get older, but dementia is a big topic. Dementia and Alzheimer's. How many people have a history in their family of dementia or Alzheimer's? Yeah, a lot of us. So yeah, and I think how many people are scared of that? Yeah, losing your mind. I mean, so that's a really, really intense and interesting area of study right now. We know that there has been a huge problem with, frankly, misogyny in medicine and in scientific research. And I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but a lot of the medical research that has gone on in general categories like diabetes, for instance, didn't until very recently look at the differences between men and women, which is a huge mistake. Women are not men with estrogen, you know? So, and men are not women with testosterone. There are differences between us physiologically. And one of the huge areas that has been ignored is brain function in dementia and Alzheimer's in women. And there's this one researcher, Lori Mosconi, I believe, in New York City, who's been doing a ton. She wrote a great book, which of course I can't remember the name of right now, but I'll find it for you guys. And it's very exciting. Some of it's a little scary, but it's also very exciting to finally have some data so that we can look at, well, would estrogen therapy enhance our cognition and decrease our risk for brain dysfunction as we get older? Because that's a huge issue. It's a huge issue. And the idea
is it brain
yeah.
food? Brain food, the surprising science of eating.
It is not. It is.
I'll find it. I'll find it
on my desk. Yeah, yeah.
The XX brain.
Yes.
Got it. I'll put it
Yes.
in the chat.
Yes. And she's really amazing, really, really smart, and doing some really cool stuff, looking at like functional brain MRIs. So, you know, it's not just a static image of your brain, but like what is going on as you do certain tasks and what areas light up and that kind of stuff. Kind of, if anybody's a science nerd, it's pretty cool stuff. But that book is written for the lay public. Okay. So what are we supposed to do about this? Now that I've laid out, you know, all these horrible problems that we're all having, what are we supposed to do about this? Right. Yes. Afraid of HRT. Somebody's asking, afraid of HRT. Yeah. So that's what I'm about to talk about. How many of you guys are either on, sorry, I'm getting a text. Sorry about that. How many of you guys are either on hormone replacement therapy or have been on any hormone replacement therapy? So yeah, not that many.
Yeah.
Interesting. How many of you are not on hormone replacement therapy because you're scared? I actually want Chelsea, let me know what the number is.
Yeah, I think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe 6.
Okay. And how many of you, when you hear hormones, just like your brain goes to mush and or like starts lighting on fire because it's like, what? That's so confusing and overwhelming. Yeah.
More.
Me too. Okay. So I want to give a quick and dirty on this one. Until the early, let's see, what is it now? It's 2020. So about 2004, a huge study was published called the Women's Health Initiative. Until that time, the most prescribed medication in this country was Prempro, okay, which is sort of the old school combination hormone replacement therapy. It was the most prescribed medication. It's wild. This study came out and blew the roof off of a lot of assumptions that we had made. Not going to really go into detail on that. There were, as we dug into the study though, it was really not a very good study. It wasn't looking at us.
Isn't Prempro stand for pregnant mare's urine? It was made from pregnant mare's urine.
Premarin, it was, yes, Premarin was. The pro is actually progestin. Because if you have a uterus, you need to have the estrogen for a lot of the primary effects of hormone replacement therapy. They really do help reverse a lot of, like almost every single thing that we talked about will be positively impacted by using estrogen. Progestin was used to protect the lining of the uterus because estrogen in this particular form goes to any receptor site, which is all over the body and especially the reproductive tract, and can overstimulate it. Because if we dial back to before we're on hormones or when we have a normal cycle, do you guys remember from health class, just that curve? Anybody remember? There's a lot that goes into that. And it is a very, very intricate dance between hormones and brain telling your ovary what to do and turning this on and turning that off. And okay, that's a whole 2-hour lecture in and of itself. It's very, very, very complicated. All right. Prempro was one way of dealing with it, not the way that I ever used or that I ever dealt with, and not bioidentical. Okay, so that's one of the key points here. One of the big issues with that study was they were looking at, thank you, Tammy, something that was, it's not foreign, it was foreign to our body. I mean, yes, it will act in some ways similar to the way our hormones that we made acted, but it's very different than what our body actually makes. So it has a lot of other effects that maybe we didn't really want. That's number one. Number two, it wasn't looking at women as they were heading into or starting menopause. It was looking at women way past menopause, a decade or more, many of whom already had major medical problems like heart disease. So these are ladies that were in their 60s that had heart disease and now started on hormones. And guess what? They had problems. Well, duh. So this kind of shitty study had a really major chilling effect on women and hormone replacement therapy. And that's okay, because I think it made us go back to the drawing board and look more carefully at a lot of the way we were conducting research and the way we were treating women. So here we are 15 plus years later, and there's been an explosion in compounding pharmacies, okay? Natural stuff. So confusing. I'm gonna touch on this briefly because we just only have so much time. What I will tell you is that it's very, very important. I'm gonna give you some definitions here to understand the difference. Hormone replacement therapy is any therapy that offers a replacement to the hormones that your body was making prior. Okay, it's a general category. Bioidentical hormone replacement therapy or bioidentical hormone replacements, bioidentical hormones are hormones that are being created elsewhere. They're not coming from you. They're not coming from, I'm not gonna grab Chelsea and take her ovary, grind it up and eat it. That's the only human, I mean, we don't use human hormones. They are all, guys, natural. As if you want to take some, you know, yam, wild yam, that's a big popular one. This is what I tell people. If you know a wild yam that is severely depressed, you should definitely go find some wild yam cream for that yam. God bless that yam. Maybe it'll help you, but it's not native to what we make. It's not our endogenous self-created hormones, okay? So anything bioidentical isn't necessarily natural. It's being made in a manufacturing plant, okay? That's number one. So those are the definitions. So bioidentical is being made elsewhere, but it is mimicking exactly what we were making. Now, the ratios and all that, that's nearly impossible to recreate. And so we just have to do the best we can to look at symptoms, what we know will help those symptoms and increasing quality of life while balancing the risks, okay? Because anything we do in life has a potential risk. So one way to, okay, I'm really sorry. Please hold. The 22-year-old's music is very loud. That's just happening. Oh, maybe he got a psychic message. Hold on. No. My wonderful boyfriend sent him a message. Thank you, honey. This is my life. Okay, it could be worse. Everybody, thank you, Gregory. Okay, so back to the top. Bioidentical. So that's bioidentical versus just regular standard hormone replacement therapy. And I, personally, my preference and professionally, my preference is to use bioidenticals. I think they're safer. They don't have as much data. And so if you are getting pushback or even being put down or told that's bullshit or I mean, understand where it's coming from. A lot of my colleagues are coming from a very narrow conservative perspective. Let me just throw something at you. So OBGYNs have a 4-year residency, right? We go to medical school, we graduate, then we have 4 years in clinic, hospital, and academic work to really hone our skills before we are let loose on society when we know a lot, but please, how much do we really know? How many residents come out feeling confident about menopause care? You guys want to venture a guess? Lori Bernstein, sorry, I saw that. Okay, something like 40 to 50% feel like confident dealing with menopause. That's half. And I just told you that we're spending 1/3 to 1/2 of our lives in this period of time. What in the actual fuck? Okay, guess what? When they actually test these very overconfident residents, like 80% of them basically don't know what they're doing. And that's not their fault. It's because it's not taught. I mean, there's, if you're learning how to do surgeries and deliver babies and take care of acute problems and be in the hospital and do a pap smear, and I mean, it's a lot to learn in 4 years, but menopause is not valued and it's not taught. So you're also going to find that a lot in your medical community, 5 years out, 20 years out, 30 years out. They've set their beliefs, they've set their ideas, they've set their practices, and they're maybe not very up to date. I think if you can find someone that you feel comfortable with, that has good training, and that you can have a conversation with, that's the most important thing. And if you come in armed with some data, that will be very helpful to you. So that's why I want you to understand the differences between the hormones. The fear about hormones is understandable given what I told you about the history. I think there's also a lot of fear of, there's a family history of breast cancer. This is the number one thing I hear. My grandmother had breast cancer, or my mom had breast cancer. I can't take hormones. Guess what? We don't really know if that's true. We actually don't know if that's true. And again, because of the complex nature of how the hormones work in our bodies when we're producing them ourselves, let alone once we're going through changes, and now add in genetics and, other factors like environment, stress, other substances you've been exposed to, it's very, very hard to determine. So it has to be a conversation. So I think, to me, a red flag is always black and white thinking, whether that's coming from the more traditional, holistic, integrative perspective or the more conventional. When someone's super black and white about it, I'd especially when it's this, I'd be very careful. I'd be very, very careful. Okay. I wish I could talk more about it, but that's again, another 5-hour conversation. I think knowing if you're a candidate or not is the most important thing. And here's where I land on that. If you're having symptoms that are really severely impacting your quality of life, you need to make a choice. Are you going to not sleep, which is going to cause more mood changes, more lack of energy, more stress, more cortisol release, more weight gain? Or are you going to do something about that? And maybe what you're going to do is you're going to power through the 4 or 5 years. And that is okay, because the truth is that this is your experience in your life. If you're having hot flashes, a lot of times the cascade is this, right? Raise your hand if you've had this one. Hot flash, have to pee, wake up, stress out about the to-do list, don't sleep, next morning, a miserable human to be around. Yeah. Can't work out, eating a lot of carbs.
A lot of people.
So, I can tell you that if you're a candidate for hormone replacement therapy, this is a great place to use it. And I have a lot of patients who will just even do it for a short period of time, sort of get through the worst of it, because a lot of people, once they get through it, and it's not the up and down that's craziness and unpredictable, they actually do a lot better. They do a lot better. And dialing back to what I said earlier, about 4-ish years on average if we don't treat the symptoms at all. Some people have a capacity to deal with that. Some people don't have really severe symptoms either. And there really are women who slide through this and glide through it. It's not that many, but there are women who are not getting severely affected. Okay, so hormones. Here, what about other things, right? You heard that I'm an Ayurvedic practitioner, an integrative medicine doctor. There are a lot of great herbs out there. And my experience with them has been very, very positive. Here's the difference between using hormones or antidepressants. There are some antihypertensive meds that have been used. I don't typically use them, but they can be used for hot flashes. Those are going to act very, very quickly, right? They're a targeted, amplified small molecule, and they're going to act very quickly, a week or 2, maybe 3. Herbs are a much more gentle way of doing things. They act synergistically with your body, and they're going to take longer, 60 to 90 days. 60 to 90 days. You have to be patient. So what are my top herbs for hot flashes? That would be black cohosh. There is an interesting company that I work with called Kindra that has some really cool herbs they're working with also. One of them is I think it's called E450. It's a proprietary Korean blend. And something called marine pine bark extract. So all of these, when you look at herbs, you're looking at much smaller studies. So Women's Health Initiative had tens of thousands of women, right? These are huge studies that are academic centers and pharma. Okay, they have a lot of money. NIH, big federal grants. herbs, do you think somebody's putting a lot of money into that? They're not. So these are studies that typically will have 50 to maybe 150 or 200 people in them. So how can we widely apply those results to people? It's hard to say, but generally speaking, these herbs are, in my opinion, safe, and the data is not out there to say that they are causing harm. So what I see with black cohosh specifically is about a 50% reduction in hot flashes, which could be really, really beneficial to people. Okay. There are a lot of there's so many. Rhodiola is a wonderful, especially for stress and mood. Ashwagandha has become very popular. So these are some of the, I mean, a lot of the red rhubarb, or Russian red rhubarb, I believe. There's a product called Estrovera, which I like a lot. It's made by Metagenics, which is a really good company. So here's the other thing to know. Herbs and herbs are categorized as dietary supplements. They are not regulated by the FDA. They do not have the same kind of rigorous regulation and testing applied to them. And all of these companies are not equal. So sticking with a highly vetted, well-reputed company is really important. Just going out to buy black cohosh, I don't think is a great idea, and we can maybe make a list of my favorite companies or something and get that out to you guys. So these are some of the herbs that I like. Vaginal dryness I do want to talk about, because vaginal dryness becomes that category we talked about urinary tract stuff, sexual dysfunction. Here's another area where I get a lot of fear about, well, I can't, or I don't want to use hormones, but my sex life is in the toilet, or my vagina is just dry, it just hurts when I exercise or just walk around, or I'm getting tons of UTIs. If you're getting a lot of bladder infections and you're taking a lot of antibiotics, I mean, that's not good for you either. And what we know more and more is that the microbiome, which is the very specific set of microorganisms, bacteria that live on our body that we need, we live synergistically with these bacteria, and they help us perform all the functions of our body. That changes with our hormones changing, it changes with antibiotics, it changes with diet. So we have to look at how that is affecting us. The vagina has a microbiome too. So as estrogen goes down, not only is the collagen going down, just like in your face, but your blood flow is decreasing, the pH balance is changing, and the bacteria that live there is changing, which is why maybe you're having more vaginal burning, having more vaginal infections, having more bladder infections, having more difficulty with intercourse or with masturbation or whatever it is. There are a lot of social, cultural, societal issues that play into sexuality. Sexuality and libido are not an on-off switch. That's not how that works. You're not going to, when someone comes in, I want to test my hormones, I don't want to have sex anymore, give me testosterone. Whoa. It's really not. I wish it was that simple. It is not that simple. What we do know is that there's a lot of evidence to show that the vaginal absorption of hormones really stays in the vaginal tissue. So this gets back to where I started, where people have a lot of fear about their own family history or even their personal history, and can they use hormones vaginally? And it turns out that it looks like they probably can. And this is, again, where you have to individualize. One person may do better with one product, one person may do better with another. Lubrication and moisturizers are things you can buy over the counter. Lube is for sex, moisturizer is for your own comfort. Just so you know, that's the way we categorize it, and they're made differently. But the reality is that in order to sort of get your own body going again, a lot of the hormone products that are out there that are for vaginal use are really, really well tested and much more effective, frankly. They're much more effective. I think my favorite right now is something called Prasterone, which is, the brand name is Intra Rosa. And it's actually made from a DHEA, which is a precursor hormone. It's in a sort of a soft bullet. You insert it vaginally. I don't think it makes a lot of mess, but some people don't like that. And it will be absorbed into the vaginal tissue and converted by your enzymes in your body into either testosterone or an estrogen product, depending on what you what your body is needing and wanting. And we do have a lot of data actually that vaginal testosterone is both safe and effective. So that's something that I like. And I think there are a lot of different meds out there that people have questions about and like and don't like, and that's more of a question for your doctor. But know that even as a breast cancer survivor, I feel comfortable as long as I'm talking with you and your oncologist using some of these hormone replacement therapy products vaginally, because that's a really important quality of life issue. Quickly, lifestyle stuff. Okay, so this is, we're going to spend 2 minutes on it pretty much because I really want to get to questions. I have another whole other talk that I talk about called the 6 S's of self-care. Okay, so basically these are all the lifestyle components. And this is where we can really have a positive impact. I've kind of touched on them in all of the things that we've talked about. And they are dealing with your sleep. They are dealing with exercise and how important exercise is for your physical health, for the bone health, for the heart health, for the balance aspects, for your pelvic floor, which will also have a positive impact on incontinence. That's a big thing. I mean, again, we could talk about that one forever, and I'm not going to really go there, but that's something that people start to really suffer from as we age as well. But there are other aspects of self-care, right? They are spirituality. They are social connection. They are giving back, right? They are centering yourself, taking care of yourself, not feeling like I don't have time for me. I have to take care of all of them. You're really not taking care of them if you don't take care of yourself. And for those of us who have families, what is the message that we are giving about ourselves and our worth? If we don't take care of ourselves at all, is that really the message that you want to put out there to the people that you love, that you don't matter? I mean, probably not, and you don't want them to go on and do that in their life either, where they're like, oh, I'm not that important. I mean, that's not a thing. We're all important. So the science of self-care is kind of a lot of what we've talked about. There is, first of all, the obvious intuitive aspects of taking care of ourselves and why that is important. That's why you guys took this time on a Sunday to sit on this Zoom call. But there's a lot of science to support this. There's a lot of science showing that there are positive physiologic benefits. One of the ways that I usually start my boot camp is with a short meditation. Maybe we'll end with it depending on time. Meditation has some of the best data to support its use physiologically. I mean, increase in oxygen consumption, decrease in blood pressure, decrease in heart rate, changes in all of the stress, fight or flight hormones. It's so important. And if you don't connect with the idea of like a classic meditation, there are a lot of things that are out there that, I mean, of course, there's a million apps out there now for guided meditations and inspiration. I'd love to teach you 2 really short ones that I like, that if you just feel yourself kind of getting, just breathing, it's powerful. And the science is there to support that it is powerful medicine. So these are the things that you guys can do. You can start doing them right now. There's a ton of products out there. I'm not here to sell those products. Wicking materials and cooling mattress covers and all sorts of stuff. You guys are smart ladies. You can find some of those things. And those can work great for people too. But I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that. And then one of the other S's that I did not talk about too much, but I call it sustenance. And that's everything we consume. So obviously diet, what you eat, is important, right? And nourishing yourself is important. And there is, again, no one size fits all eating pattern. I mean, a lot of it's common sense. And then there's a lot of other metabolic issues and genetic issues that we don't all share. But it's other things we consume. So in Ayurveda, we talk about consuming through all of the senses. What are the media that you are consuming? What television shows are you watching? What are you reading? Who are you relating to? Who are you in relationship with? Are those nourishing relationships? Are they vampires? Are they toxic? I mean, this has been an interesting time, right? Because you can kind of mediate your relationships in a very different way. And I think maybe some of the ways that we're learning to create and accept boundaries we can take out of the pandemic and out of the isolation, because I think some of them are good. Some of them are hard, but some of them are good. So maybe thinking about other things that you're consuming in a different way and how that has an impact on your spiritual well-being, but also just your general health. I have a lot of information on aroma and how that has an impact on us. These are all things that we could talk about at another time. But I want to take questions. How are we doing on time?
Let's do that. Yeah. We have a few minutes. Let's start with some of them that have been backlogged. Devin asked if we're in peri, do we not need to get hormones checked, or what do we do?
So again, I want to remind you guys what I said about hormone checking. It's generally not helpful, and let me be more specific. So thank you for that question. The problem with checking your hormones at any time is that, remember I talked about how everything's fluctuating. So what information is that giving us? And remember I talked early on about the fact that other hormones have a very narrow reference range in which we need to function. But actually by design, the hormones that we look at in reproduction and in our menstrual life go up and down. So if you don't know when your last period was and when your next period is coming, it's meaningless. It's completely meaningless. You can go ahead and do it. It's not going to help me take care of you. It's not going to help you take care of you. There are some very specific ways and reasons why I would check hormones, and they're very specific. So, and I think that the standard blood tests are not very helpful in that area. I mean, here's the thing. If you come in, you're 48 years old, you're skipping periods, you're having hot flashes, you're irritable, your vagina's dry, do I need to test that? I mean, I have the diagnosis. Maybe I want to rule out that it's not something else. That I would do. But you just told me what your diagnosis is. It's me listening to you. Does that answer? Okay.
Allison asked, she read that menopause prior to 51 is considered early and not necessarily a good thing. Can you explain?
Well, actually, that's not true. Early menopause is defined depending on, there's two ways. There's early menopause and there's premature ovarian insufficiency, when your ovaries just kind of run out. POI is less than 40. Early menopause is less than 45. I mean, I think to characterize things as good or bad, I want to be careful with that. Does that increase your risk potentially of some of the things we talked about? Osteoporosis, heart disease, dementia, mood stuff? Yes. So that is why it is important, if you have completely completed menopause by 45, to work with somebody who's very experienced so that they can talk about what's going to be an acceptable treatment plan for you, what are your risks, and how do you want to approach those things.
Will you talk about options to control menopause symptoms that are not estrogen or hormonal for those of us who are breast cancer survivors? So
I did talk about a lot of herbs, and those herbs are considered to be safe. And as I did discuss, I'm thinking this came up before we talked about it, but a lot of the vaginal and urinary tract symptoms can be managed with some of the vaginal moisturizers. But the truth is, if it's really severe and if you're young, you're probably going to want to at least look at some of the safer hormonal vaginal, non-systemic, but vaginal treatment options. There's a lot out there. There's also like Mona Lisa laser for dryness and things like that, that can help. And, it's a little trickier for those of us who can't or don't want to take hormones, but it's doable. It's totally doable. Acupuncture and Chinese medicine, I didn't talk about that. That can be a real game changer for people. So if you have access to that in your community, I really want to highly recommend somebody who would be, trained in this area. I mean, I'm in LA, so there's like a wealth of resources here, but that's another option for a cancer survivor.
Do you recommend the Mona Lisa laser for dryness?
I think as long as people have been well counseled. So I hear a lot of ridiculousness out there. Oh, it's better for sex, and it's going to make your vagina tight, and it's going to cure your incontinence. That's not that. No. It is going to have a very surface impact. So it will help a lot with vaginal dryness, because what it does is it creates some damage, and then in the regrowth process, in the healing process, vaginal mucosa, the lining, regrows back, and it's much more similar to premenopausal. It's not for everybody, but it can be very, very helpful for people. Insurance is not going to pay for it either. So know that. Thanks for asking that.
A couple of more. Tina H asked, is HRT for peri and not post?
It's for anybody. A lot of my patients, listen, most people are going to start in perimenopause because that's when I think we see the most misery. People are just like, we've already talked about this, right? So that's frequently when people will start. And a lot of those people will continue because they see the benefit, and we can tweak and play with the doses, and it depends on what the issue is, and we move this around and we add that and we get rid of this. Some of my patients really want to be off of them if they can. And so it's very important. Slowly wean. If you boom, stop your hormones, you're going to feel exactly the way you felt when you started, which is going to just create a vicious cycle. So I think, again, I'm very Buddhist in my approach to medicine, which is don't be attached to anything. Like if you come in and you're in misery, let's look at the options for treatment, okay? And then let's see as time goes on, what do you need? But those treatments can be useful for postmenopause. So let's say you've already completed your menopause and you really are like, you know what, I've been white knuckling it long enough, I want some help. Come in and let's talk about it. I will tell you that if you delay starting hormones more than 5 to 10, really more like 10 years, you're going to get the symptom relief, but you're not going to have the prevention that you might have with osteoporosis and dementia. That's a very controversial dementia, but you're not going to see the benefits, and you may actually have some risk of heart disease.
KP asked, is there a non-hormonal solution for lack of libido?
Again, not one size fits all. There is one product out there, as long as you don't have hypertension or other heart disease, called Ristela, Ristela. You can go on their website and buy it right now. And that has been very helpful for people who don't want, even vaginal hormones. If you don't do something about your vagina, you're not going to like sex. If your vagina hurts, it's just not going to feel good. So, and if the tissue is changed and we're not doing anything to support your tissue health, it's not going to feel good. Now, obviously, not all sex is intercourse, right? There's a lot of different things. Here's the other thing I would really highly recommend. Get to know your body, explore your body. Look at what is your perception of sexuality? Is this a process? Is it about intimacy? Is it about having an orgasm? Again, remember I said it's not an on-off switch, because sexuality is a broad range of experiences, behaviors, and attitudes. If you're by yourself versus with a partner, it's a new partner, it's a long-term partner. Dopamine, which is anticipation and being excited, that happens a lot in a new relationship, right? Maybe in an older relationship, not so much, so you have to change it up. So yeah, there's lots of things you can do. It depends on where you're experiencing the difficulty.
Susan wants to know, what are your thoughts about gabapentin for hot flashes?
GABA can work. GABA can work pretty well. It's not my go-to. It has more of a neurotransmitter impact. I just don't use it that much because the other thing is it can be sedating. So for some people don't like that. GABA can be great for sleep though, like great for sleep.
Devin wants to know, have you ever heard anything about stevia causing joint pain?
No, I have not. No. That's not something I know about. Interesting.
I think Tina wants to know, does testing help to know how much estrogen versus progesterone to take?
Yeah, so as I noted earlier, there's a very narrow number of issues that I would address by testing. I think if it could, but let me put it this way. In general, I don't monitor my patients' progress, so to speak, on hormones by doing testing. If there are other issues, bleeding, this is a hard one to ask. This is kind of medically, but I know there are a lot of people that's how they practice, and I don't think the science supports it in general.
Thank you. I think we're caught up on questions. Does anyone have any questions that you haven't asked yet? Tina, I'm going to unmute you for a second. Tina, there you go. Go ahead.
I've had issues with taking birth control that like sent me into headaches and all kinds of issues. And I've always been afraid that HRT is going to have those same results that taking birth control did. Does the research show that people have those, if they've had those symptoms?
Right. I get this question a lot. And there's not a ton of data on that. And I think you really just have to be open to experimenting. I mean, this is a little bit more of like a specific question that I would say you should probably address with your practitioner. But just because somebody had one issue on birth control pills doesn't mean they're going to have the same issue on hormone replacement therapy, largely because they're not the same medications and also because your body is in a different place. But that's migraine and headache is a whole other category of issue. So I'm going to table that.
Kara C wants to know if you have any advice on weight gain.
Yeah. So as I talked about, some of the weight gain is related to stress and lack of sleep. We know that weight loss is really 80% what you eat. And I think that's a real rough one. I think some of it is really just about refocusing on the health, and it depends on how much weight you've gained and is there anything else going on there, of course. But I think for people who can be on hormones, sometimes that can be helpful because the worst part is when people are fluctuating. And so if you can get people into more of a steady state on hormones, that can be helpful. But if people are super stressed and not sleeping, then, they're not really going to do very well. And I think the other thing that women need to understand as we get older is that increasing our metabolic rate is really important. Our metabolism starts to slow as we get older. It's just a natural consequence of aging. And so you have to be very careful about overdoing it, because if you over-exercise, you're going to stress your body, which is going to do the opposite. If you don't build that lean body mass, you're not going to be burning as efficiently. So this is where working with somebody, a professional, can be very helpful. I mean, obviously everything's online now, and just be very careful about like, I'm going to be paleo, or I'm going to be keto, or I'm going to be like, I'm not against any of those things, but I think you have to look at your individual self. The other thing that happens is with stress, remember we talked about the microbiome. If your digestion is off, first of all, if your microbiome in the gut is off, you're going to have more mood issues and you may have more problems with weight. So this is an area that is really getting looked at a lot more closely. And I don't think there's a lot of information out there for us, but some of this is also like this desire to be 25, right? Like it's just something you have to let go of.
I have one more question for today. How can we connect with you? People are asking for your other talks.
Yeah.
How can people find you? How can people connect with you?
The best thing to do is one of two things. Get on my email list, which I think Campowerment's going to help you with, plus minus. If you just go to my website, which is the Dr. Suzanne, THEDRSUZANNE.com, you can get on my email list that way. Follow me on social. Honestly, everything goes on all platforms, but I'm most active on Instagram, and that's at Ask Dr. Suzanne. Again, DR, no punctuation. And all my stuff is usually on there too. So anything that I am going to do a full menopause boot camp sometime soon. I don't know. It's kind of up in the air right now because of how things are going. And I have a monthly email, and there's a lot of information in that too. So I would love to connect with you. And if you're local, you can come see me as a patient. I'm actually opening my telemedicine practice up probably next week. So even if you're not local and you want to consult with me as a practitioner, you can do that. And that will be on my website as well.
So you'll receive a follow-up email in the next few minutes, I think in a half hour actually, that has the basics of this, but another follow-up will come. Dr. Suze will connect on just jotting down a down and dirty list of some of the supplements you shared. So I don't have a deadline for everyone, but we will follow with an additional email that summarizes some of these resources. And we'll include Dr. Suzanne's website as well as her social media handles, but I also threw them in the chat. So you can grab them from there. Thank you so much. That was awesome.
Amazing.
Everyone,
do you guys have 2 minutes to close with me? Let's just do it because it's a lot of information. It can be really overwhelming. So I just want to have you get comfy wherever you're sitting. Close your eyes. Have your feet touching the ground if at all possible, and just slow your breathing down. So I'm going to give you 2 meditations that you can use at any time. And I want to remind you that meditation is not about achieving a goal. And if you're a person who thinks meditation stresses you out, that's okay. The whole point is your brain is going to float all over and you're going to bring it back to something. So that's why I think having a thought, a mantra, or a practice is helpful. And the first one is just breathe in, thinking 1, and breathe out through your nose, thinking 2. So 1 and 2. 1, 2. You can do this anywhere. You can do this at a stoplight. You can do this when you're cooking because your kids are screaming. You can do this in an office meeting. You can do this in a Zoom meeting. Okay. The last one is really one of my favorites. Okay. And it comes from a practice called metta, or loving kindness. And frequently with that, we sort of breathe in love and compassion and breathe it out toward people we love, people we don't love. But this one is my favorite, okay? And the mantra is this, and you just think this to yourself: I love you, keep going. So direct it at yourself today. I love you, keep going. Breathe deeply in, hold it. I love you, keep going. Breathe it out. And you can flutter your eyes open when you're ready. Thank you so much for your time, you guys. I hope you got something out of it, and I look forward to having interactions with you.
You. And thanks to all of you for showing up today on this Sunday. If this was helpful to you and you got something from this or any other Campowerment programming, we ask that you please, please, please share the link to our programming with anyone you know, who, male or female, who could use a dose of connection and empowerment. Mother's Day week starts tomorrow. We are going into a full week of mama-related programming. Whether you're a mama, whether you have a mama, whether you're an auntie and you have nieces, or a grandmother or a granddaughter, we have programming for all of that. We have some incredible, incredible supporters. We have Soto Lifestyle. We have One Tough Bitch is one of our sponsors. We have Women's Health Reproductive Center, and we have, what is the fourth one, Jill?
Style Union Home. We have an awesome calendar. Would love to have you. Thank you for being here.
Please share with us